call him Andy. And Andy's title is Don't Mess with Mother Nature. Don't mess with Mother Nature. Andy Loeffler.
You? Yeah. Hello, everybody. Thank you for letting me tell you a lie today. I usually tell stories when I'm up here, but now I get to tell a lie. That's more that's where I'm comfortable, you know. Just kidding. So don't mess with Mother Nature. There are hundreds of times when you can think of that term, why it's real. Like for this guy that's out in the ocean during a hurricane rowing a rowboat. You just don't do that, right? You don't mess with Mother Nature. What about Ed Lewis when he's up on a rooftop during tornado storms, tornadoes going around? No, Ed, you don't do that. You don't mess with Mother Nature, right? There are hundreds and hundreds of things that you might do that might come to mind, but that's really impersonal. That's because Mother Nature is a real person. And I want to tell you about the origin of that term because of that. But before that, I have to go all the way back to the beginning of the earth, of the world, before there was any plant or anything like that. All there was a lot of energy, okay? And somehow that energy was there to create life. How did that happen? Well, I know how it happened. It happened because of aptons. That's APTONS, aptons. Now, aptons are very small. They don't eat, they don't breathe, they don't see, and they don't hear. They get their energy from the items that they're attached to. And they're attached to everything around you. This carpet, the chairs you're sitting on, this microphone, these photos up here on the wall, everything aptons are attached to. They are prolific. There's so many you can't count them. They are aware of everything about them. And that's why I say that they live. They're not alive like you and I are, but they live because they are aware of everything about them. They can get together and they can create roads or trees or anything that is material in existence. And they can also get down to the molecular level and do tiny little things, tiny little changes. And that's how they allow the energy to create that spark of life and for things to grow. Now, to us, they're invisible. They're so small, they're invisible. And since they're attached to everything, they take on the appearance of what it is they're attached to. They only move when no one's looking. That's why we've never been able to see them before. Okay? So they know, because of their awareness, they know when you're looking at them. All right? Now, we do sense them. Humans sense them, animals sense them. Have you ever, for instance, thought you saw something out of the corner of your eye and then look and nothing's there?
Yeah.
And what about an animal, a dog or a cat that maybe sniffs at a bush or a blade of grass tentatively, and then all of a sudden they jerk back thinking, oh my gosh, it looks like something struck at them, but no, if you go check it out, there's nothing there. That's aptons having fun with them and with us. So they're very, very secretive. From the beginning of time, they've only let themselves be known to people on the very rarest of occasions. This is one of those occasions that I'll tell you about. Back in the fall of 1693, near Salem, in the East Coast, it was during the Salem witch trials. There was a lady who lived there. Her name was Amparo, and she loved nature so much that she treated every tree and every blade of grass as if it were her child. She just really cared for nature. She loved it so much. She lived on a hilltop in a small little house, and the front of the house had flowers and shrubbery with vibrant colors. On the side of the house, there was rows of her subsistence garden, her corn, her beans, and her squash. And next to her house was this gigantic oak tree, so big it shaded her house all day long. It was full of acorns, just ready for harvesting, thousands of acorns. Hundreds of birds lived up there and other animals as well. It was that big. The aptons trusted her implicitly because of her love for nature. Can you mute? Please mute yourself if you're on YouTube, whatever it's called, on Zoom. Okay, so anyway, where was I? Oak trees. So yeah, all the birds and everybody lived up. Now, the Aptons knew that she loved them so much that they trusted her. And so they gave her their powers of awareness. So even though people were walking around, they didn't see her. She knew where they were at all times. And they also gave her the opportunity to manipulate things at her whim. So for instance, if she wanted to get a piece of fruit high in a tree, but she couldn't get up the tree, she had to, the Aptons would create these branches for her so that she could climb up the tree and grab that fruit right off the top. It was perfect. If she wanted to go into the forest and collect her herbs and teas, the Aptons would create pathways through the forest and take her directly to where those herbs and teas were. She always had the finest herbs and teas, which was important because she sold those down in the village. She went into the village because she had to every once in a while. She really didn't like people very much because people destroy nature. They destroy the natural world around them, sometimes for no reason at all. But the Aptons, they would help her out. If someone was coming into her house to visit with her, she didn't want to see him, the Aptons would hide her. They would create a hedge that she could sit behind and no one would know she was there. No one ever saw her in her house. She was never there. When she went into the village to sell her herbs and teas, she would talk a little bit about the herbs and teas, but that's it. When they were sold, she'd be gone. And the people in the village began to get suspicious, wondering, who is this lady who is never there? She always has the finest herbs and teas. What's going on here? And because of the witch trials that were going on, they began to think she was a witch. So they gathered together in a crowd and they walked up the hill to her house and they surrounded it. She knew they were coming, so she got up into the oak tree and hid. The Aptons hid her. So they surrounded her house and they were yelling at the house. They were saying, "Come out, witch. We know you're in there. We know you're doing black magic. Come out of that house now." She didn't come out. Well, she wasn't in there. And so they got even madder and they rushed the house and they broke down the door and they went in there. And they stood around and looked and no one was there. That even made them madder. So they started trashing things and, oh my gosh, poor Amparo, she got mad. She wasn't scared, but she was mad at him. She said, "Move away from my house or I will smite thy crops and you shall perish by winter's end." You see, this is fall, right? The crops were ready to go. Back then, they needed that food. So it got their attention, sure enough. But they still were so angry. And they looked up in the tree and they said, "How is it that you can talk from that tree? Where did you come from? Did you fly up there, witch?" She said, "I'm no witch, but you must move away." And at that, she commanded the acorns to fall. So all these acorns, thousands of them, were falling on the crowd. And then the birds, that freaked all the birds out. So the birds were flying around too. And there was all this commotion, right? And so it distracted them. So when they were distracted, she went over to the side of the forest and hid behind a hedge. And then she spoke again, but this time startled them because she was somewhere different. And she said, "I am telling you, I am no witch, and you must leave. Behold my garden." And they looked up at her garden, and the corn started to dry up. The green beans wilted and shriveled. The beautiful squash just wilted down to nothing. She goes, "I shall do the same to your crops if you do not move and leave now." So they stopped. They were freaking out. And they said, "My gosh, if she can have this kind of power over nature, it's as if she's their mother. If she was a witch, she certainly could have killed us by now." So they decided that she was not a witch and they walked back to the village. And on the way back to the village, they said, "She really must be Mother Nature." And finally, when they got to the village, they told everybody, "That lady up on the hill up there, that's Mother Nature, and you don't mess with Mother Nature." So there, folks, that's where the term came from. Thank you.
Great story. Thank you, Andy. Our second presenter today is going to be on Zoom. And her name is Sharon Elwell. And Sharon's title is "Who Killed Abraham Lincoln?" Who killed Abraham Lincoln? Sharon Elwell.
Bountiful magazine. I don't know if you can see that, but this was published in September of 1891. I was fascinated with the interesting advertisements and information, so much more than we would see in a magazine today. And as I was leafing through it, this fell out. Letter, and it says, do not open before 1965. Well, I think we're safe there. That's plenty of time ago. And there's a letter in here. I don't think you can see any words on that, but I can. So I'll read them to you. It says, my name is John Parker. You will not have heard of me. Now, that's not true. I've heard of John Parker. He was Abraham Lincoln's bodyguard on the night of the assassination. I know who he is. I was a knight. He didn't spell very well. There's no K here, but I think he means a knight. I was a knight of the Golden Circle. You will not have heard of that either. Well, yes, I have. I heard of the Golden Circle. The Golden Circle was a secret society dedicated to continuing the hostilities between the North and the South. Just because General Lee had surrendered at Appomattox, these folks had not surrendered, and they did not intend to. Every night of the Golden Circle had a specific task. One was to attack the Secretary of State. One was to attack Vice President Johnson. Mine was to kill Abraham Lincoln. There were several steps in the process. I had to ensure that General Grant would not be in the theater. I remember reading that the Grants had been invited to attend the theater with the Lincolns that night. And they didn't do it, and I didn't know why. He says, it was an easy task. Julia Grant and Mary Lincoln detested one another. I planted some seeds of gossip among the household staff, and that afternoon, the Grants regretfully declined the invitation. If General Grant had been there, I think the outcome would have been different. He would have been, his military instincts would have kicked in, I think. My second task was to remove myself from the theater box. That was easy as well. When I complained to the president that I could not see from my post at the door, he sent me downstairs to watch the play. At intermission, I slipped across the street to the Star Saloon, where my weapon, Johnny Booth, was waiting. He was nervous, but I pumped him up with liquid courage, gave him the exact location of the president, and slipped him a gun. Then I waited in the saloon all evening away from the action. I know there were 8 people criminally prosecuted for conspiracy to kill the president. 4 of them were hanged, 4 were in prison. John Wilkes Booth was shot. I don't think any of them were members of that golden circle, but I don't know that. Then he says, I had completely escaped notice, except for one person, Mary Lincoln. She believed that I was the killer of her husband. When she saw me still working in the White House as they packed to go, she screamed and said, there's the man who murdered my husband. People felt sorry for me, hugged me, and said, don't listen to her. She's hysterical. The poor woman has been through a lot. We know that you did your duty. And indeed, I did. He did.
Darren, that was the end of your story?
Oh, you're on mute.
That was the end.
Okay.
You couldn't tell I'd come to the end, no?
No, I was waiting for you to let me know. Thank
Oh, okay.
you.
The end.
All righty. Our third presenter this afternoon is Bowen Lee. And Bowen's title is Read the Sign. Read the Sign, Bowen Lee. Thanks so much. Can I move this?
We can move that, but you do have to think about. So
Okay.
can you come
Oh,
this way a little bit?
Okay. All right. Okay, thanks.
There were 78 steps up to my grandparents' house. First, you went straight up, 14 steps. Then you went to the left, 14 steps, and then you turned and went right, 14 steps, and then you turned to the left again, 14 steps, and then you went up, straight up, 78 steps to get to their front door. Oh, it was too much for my 9-year-old legs, but I always thought, well, why don't we just have a staircase that goes straight up? It'll be a lot shorter. But no, my grandmother wanted something sophisticated. Now that Chinese people could move and live anywhere they wanted to in Oakland, they didn't just have to live in Chinatown. She was going to get a place that was sophisticated. So she had this fancy house on the top of the hill, 78 steps that zigzagged up and down. And I had to go up them all the time, wishing there was a shortcut. My grandmother liked to dress her grandchildren up in matching outfits. So one year, and then she would take pictures of us, and that would be the Christmas card. So one year, she gave us all cowboy, cowgirl outfits. My brother got a cowboy outfit. We girls got cowgirl outfits. And she thought, you have to ride real horses on these outfits. So we went to Tilden Park where they had horses. And on the way there, she announced, I am going to ride a horse too. So my brother and sister and I ran out of the car first, and we ran to where the horses are. And just over the gate, there was a sign. My sister was 4 years old. She couldn't read, but she did whatever we did. The older kids and my brother, 6.5, and me, 9, we could read. We read the sign. And we started pointing at it. My sister started pointing at it, and our eyes were big and wide, and my sister's eyes were big and wide. And we started looking at my grandmother. And my grandmother didn't know what we were doing. And then she looked up at the sign and she started to laugh. We didn't know what she was laughing about because the sign said, horses cannot carry more than 250 pounds. Now, my grandmother was only 5'1", but she was as wide as she was tall. And so my brother and I knew that she was at least 250 pounds. She was probably 300. My brother guessed she's probably 500 pounds. And she was not going to be able to get on that horse without the horse collapsing. So, but my grandmother was laughing. And I thought, does she mean that she's not 250 pounds? Well, then I figured she goes up those 78 steps every day. And maybe every time she goes up the steps, she loses a pound. She already went up her steps once that day. So maybe she's only 249 pounds. But still, that's a lot of weight for a horse to carry. Nevertheless, the man who had the horses got her up on a horse. And my brother and I watched to see that horse just sort of collapse and crumple, but the horse didn't. And the horse also didn't move. My grandmother did what she does best. She became bossy. And she started to boss that horse around. Giddy up, horse. Come on, horse. What's the matter with you? Horsey, horsey, come on, let's go. And she slapped the reins and she kicked with her heels. And she tried to make that horse go with all the bossy things that she knew about. And we kids, we were used to this. She bossed my grandfather around all the time. She bossed us kids around all the time. But the horse was not used to this. The horse took a couple of steps over to the gate and stopped. And nothing that my grandmother could do could convince that horse to budge. But my brother and I knew that that horse was telling my grandmother, read the sign. Oh, later that year, my brother and I were playing in the backyard of my grandparents' house. Now, it's on the top of the hill. There was no fence around the yard. And so I'm playing, and then all of a sudden, my brother disappears. And I hear, help, help. And I go to the edge of the yard, and I look down, and there's my brother down there. And he's hanging onto these weeds. It's like he's fallen off the edge of a cliff. He cannot get back up. So I try to reach him. I can't reach him. And he's starting to cry by now. So I tell him, don't worry, I will go get somebody. I'll get help. So he starts to cry more because I'm going to leave him. But I said, no, just wait. I go into the house. The only one at home is my grandmother. And I stand there in front of her and I say, Bobby has gone over the edge of the cliff and he cannot get back up. And my grandmother goes, what? And she rushes out the door to the backyard. You see, Chinese grandmothers, my brother was the only son, the only grandson. He was going to inherit the family name. He was going to inherit all the family, everything. So he was valuable. Us girls, we were going to get married and go off to other families, so we were worthless. But for my grandmother, this was really important. She rushed down, she went down the hill, she got underneath where my brother was, and she started pushing on his shoes so that he was pushed up enough for me to grab onto him and pull him up. My brother ran into the house, slammed the door, and he never went into the backyard ever again. And so I turned around And now my grandmother is stuck on the table. She can't get up. And she starts telling me what to do. Help me, grab me, come down, get me. Well, I wasn't very good at math, but this I knew. I'm 40 pounds and my grandmother is at least 250 pounds. She did not go up the stairs that day. I knew she was at least 250 pounds. So if I tried to pull her up, I couldn't do it. She was going to pull me down.
Yeah.
So I just stood there and I looked at her. She said, "Oh, go get a rope, get the garden hose, bring it down and I'll climb up." Well, I had already tried this previously to unhook the garden hose from the faucet and I couldn't do it. So I knew that wasn't going to happen. So I just stood there and I looked at her. She said, "Call your grandfather. Oh, call the police, call the fire department." But that was in the days of those dial phones. And if the phone number had a 1, 2, 3, or 4, then I could probably call somebody. But it was 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9, or my goodness, 0. My finger would slip and I would be dialing the wrong number. So no, I couldn't do that. That was not going to happen. I just stood there and I looked at her. And then she started to get bossy. "You are a bad girl. Look at you. You don't do anything that I say. You're not right. You are not raised up right. Your mother doesn't know what to do. She doesn't know how to raise you. She's always been a bad person, and you're being a bad person just like her." And she kept going on about me and my mother. At that moment, I remembered the horse who had stood in front of the gate, looking up at the sign. And I realized that that horse was doing the right thing. He was not going to let that lady ride on his back. And I wasn't going to either. I stood there and I looked at her. She realized after a while what was going on and that I was not going to be able to help her. So she took matters into her own hands. And she knew that she was not going to be able to go against gravity and pull herself up. So she decided to go with gravity and let herself down. So she let go of the plants. She grabbed onto other plants lower down the hill and she dug her feet into the hill. And then she let go, grabbed onto more plants, dug her feet into the hill. And she did that, forcing her way down the hill all the way down till she got to the bottom. And then she climbed the 78 steps to her front door, slammed the door, laid down, and nobody saw her for the rest of the day. So I'm at the top of the hill looking down where she had gone, and I get a really good idea. I go get a garden trowel and I start digging. Wherever she had put her feet, there was a little place in the dirt. So I dug it out more until I had a little step. And I dug all the way down until there was a staircase. I tried it out. 38 steps to get to the top. My shortcut. Oh, so I used that shortcut all summer long. And then winter came and it rained and it got all muddy, and then spring, the plants grew all over and the shortcut was gone. But it just proved what I knew all the time, that if you force your way, it doesn't last. Thank you.
Yeah.
Great story.
Okay. Did I have to move this?
It's fine.
Is it okay?
Yeah.
All righty. He says it's okay. The tech guy says it's okay where it is. Our next presenter is again on Zoom, so we're preparing her ahead of time, is Linda Lewis. And her title, Too Late Now. Too late now. Linda Lewis.
Hang on, just 1 minute. Hang on, Linda.
Hi, fellow storytellers. I came here today to tell you I cannot do your contest. I really, really wanted to, but you see, I didn't even hear about it till 2 days ago. And then about 30 hours ago, I exchanged text with Ed, and he said it wasn't too late. And I thought, but it's too late. I can't come up with something. Besides, I don't think I can lie. So I decided I'm going to take my dog for a walk because this place where we walk is sometimes kind of inspirational, as is picking up dog poop. So we went for a walk and we went down a hill and we didn't get very far. And some creature ran in front of me and I tripped and I sprained my ankle. And I'm so upset. Like, there's nobody else around. And I think, well, at least I'm not alone. I have my beautiful little dog with me, that foxy lady. By the way, her name is Genius. Because when people say, hi, foxy lady, I pretend like they're talking to me. Excuse me. So I'm getting a lot of comfort from her because I'm not alone. And I'm talking to her, and suddenly she goes, squirrel, and she's gone. And I'm like, really? Really? You're a rescue. You owe me. Get back here. I look at the ants that are now crawling up my pant leg and say, really? She just left me here? So I figured, what am I going to do? And I'm not too concerned because this is also a pathway for horseback riders. And I think someone's going to come along and they'll probably help me and it'll be okay. And soon I heard the clomping and I thought, okay, there's a horse coming. And then I see a donkey. Oh, well, that might work. That might be okay. And so I talked to the donkey real nice. And I think if I can get a hold of him, maybe I can get on his back and he can take me to safety. And so I start talking to him really nice. And he gets really close and he pees on my leg. I'm like, I'm so disgusted, but I decide not to overreact because I want to keep him close by just in case, he still might be able to help me. And so he starts to back away. And then I remember my grandmother taught me how to speak donkey. So I took a deep breath and I went, that donkey ran off so fast I could only see his head. Great. Now where am I? And nobody comes down this path except horses. And then I see somebody coming. It's a little kid. How did a little kid get out here so far? I wasn't sure. I didn't care because he had a wagon. And so I talked real nice to him too. I said, hi, little kid. What a pretty wagon. Do you suppose I could ride in your wagon and you could take me just a little ways down this path where there's more people that might see me? And he looks kind of suspicious and he says, okay. And I get in the wagon, but as I'm getting in the wagon, a piece of the wood breaks off the side and he starts to scream, you broke my wagon. You're too fat. Get out of my wagon. And he shoves me into the ground and I into the gravel and I've got gravel pits in my arm and blood running down my arm. And he takes off running. Oh God, now what? What am I going to do now? I slowly, excruciatingly get to the top of the hill. I'm exhausted. It's hot. Sweat is running down me. My clothes are torn. And there's 3 little birds. 3 little birds. And what I hear is, don't worry about a thing. Every little thing's gonna be all right. I was so angry, I tried to kick them. And when I tried to kick them, I fell over and bumped my head. And of course, they flew off. I finally get up to a walkway and exhausted, I climb, I half crawl, I half limp. I get to within 50 feet of our house and I see my husband and he's walking our treasonous dog. And he looks at me and he says, "Hi, honey. Did you come up with a story? Look at me. I have a bump on my head. I have gravel embedded in my arm. My clothes are torn. My hair's a mess. And my foot is the size of a basketball. No, I did not come up with a story." And he said, "Oh, sorry. Come back to the house. I'll make you a drink and you'll feel so much better." And he takes off. I'm like, I scream. And he goes, "Oh, sorry." He comes back and he helps me into the house. I plop on the couch. My God, how could this day get any worse? And he says, "Oh, by the way, I drank all the alcohol, so there's nothing for you to drink." And he plopped down on the beside me and he said, "But let's think positive. Did you at least have a good walk?" I said, "A creature tripped me. A donkey peed on me. A little child bit me. And 3 little birds mocked me. And our treasonous dog ran off on me. I did not have a good walk."
Yeah. Nope, you muted yourself.
Oh.
You muted yourself, Linda.
I can't do a story. And besides, I decided I can't lie. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, I don't know about you, but I have been thoroughly entertained with our last 4 presenters, and I'm sure we will with the last 3. Number 5 is Joyce Orman. And Joyce's title is, "I'm a Fisherman." I'm a fisherman, Joyce Orman.
I'm a fisherman. I've been a fisherman all my life. I learned to fish before I could remember. That's how long. Now, my father says that's not true. My father says Jake taught me to fish. I don't remember that. But my father usually doesn't lie. So, started my story about 80 years ago or more. But I go to Jake. I go fishing. Okay, we'll walk up the path, take up the levee, up to the bamboo grove. And at the bamboo grove, on the riverside, there is Jake. Shack. Scraps from the river. And he's doing well. The shack is on staples. And you stand at the, you don't go without saying, "Yoo-hoo, Jack, 'tis me." And you get back, "Yo, little lady, come on, little missy, let's go." And you grab a hold of the rein and you go on the suspension bridge. See, to the shack, which is only 2 rooms. But you're not done yet because this is up in the air. You got to climb down the ladder to water level where there is a boathouse and a dock. "Hi, Jake, go fishing?" "Yeah, let's go fishing." "Go get your gear." Go run to the boathouse and my special shelf I have a special gear because I can't use a rod and reel. I'm too little. But Jake has made me polished wood about this long with 2 posts, the line tied back and forth. And then you come to the hook, put it in this slot back, and you come to the weight that's at the end, put it in that slot. And then you grab your special glove that covers this finger, the palm, and the back of your hand. All the rest of the fingers are free. And you go down with Jake. And you go down to the dock, and Jake helps you aboard. And you're going fishing. And Jake starts rowing to the fishing hole. Now, on the way, Jake tells fishing tales, fishing stories, grand stories, and he sings some songs that my father says a 4-year-old shouldn't be singing. But that's okay. I have a tolerant family. Besides, they know me. What are they gonna do? I already have a reputation. So we get to the fishing hole. He drops the anchor. I pick up my anchor and I lay my arm in this special little padded groove on the edge of the rowboat. Drop that, pick up the hook. Oh, I forgot. I have to bait the hook. Nobody taught me to bait a hook. I could put a worm on perfect, just great, all by myself. My father may be right. Drop in the hook and let it go down slow till it hits the bottom. Then you bring it up, 1 loop around the finger, lay your hand back in the groove, and there you sit. No more stories. You know the rules. No talking while fishing because the fish can hear you. That's what Jake said. And I believe him. Pretty soon. And you pull it up and you wrap as fast as you can. And when it gets close, Jake nets it, puts it in the boat, and you got a fish. Well, you do that over and over until you have enough fish. Sometimes, though, when you're fishing, you get so tired, you lay your head down on your special seat that he's covered with a pillow, and you fall asleep. He has a dirty old, but it's not dirty really, it's just stained cotton blanket that he lays over you so the sun won't burn you. And he wakes you up, time to go, we got supper. You put the fish hook there, there, and you go rowing home or to the dock. And again, there's those fish tales. He tells them all the time. Well, I fished a couple times a week up until I went to school, about 6. And then I found something new. Kids. There were no kids where I lived, only grown-ups. You ever lived with all those grown-ups and nobody but you or a kid? Jake was my friend. The rest of them were tall. Well, kids are fun. But only a few of them wanted to fish with me. And by this time, Jake had found, as he always did, and I had a pole and a reel. I didn't have to go in the boat anymore. I could fish from the shore. And Bobby and Floyd and Dick, they all liked to go fishing. So we went fishing all the time. And I didn't go fishing with Jake anymore. I got older. I sort of gave up fishing and picked up boys that didn't like to fish necessarily. Some of them might have. Anyway, it was fun. My cousins fished. Nobody in my family ever fished. I fished streams, lakes, rivers, everywhere. And finally, I discovered the ocean. But by this time, I was an adult. I didn't see the ocean until I was an adult. And I went fishing for salmon. And one time we went out fishing and it was a nice sunny day. There was no wind. But for some reason, there were these huge swells, and I mean huge. I'm not talking 4 or 5 feet. I'm talking 20 feet. And the captain said, I don't think we should go out. I said, I'm here to fish, and I'm a fisherman. We went out. I caught a fish. It was a salmon. It was a big one. The captain said, we should go in. You would reel the fish. The wave would go up high, up, and you were fishing and the fish was up there. And the light would come through and you could see him and he was fighting and you were wheeling, and then the next thing you know, he was down there. And the trick was to reel like crazy while he was going fast. I got him in the boat. The boat hand took care of him and I leaned over the edge, and I was never so seasick in all my life. That fish cost me a lot. Well, the next great adventure was Mexico. How about San Lucas? Swordfish, marlin.
Oh, wow.
And I got on a big marlin and it was fighting and I was sitting and they wanted to help me. No, no, no. This marlin is mine. Worked and worked and worked and fish jumped beautiful on his tail, flopped down. Okay. We brought him aboard, posted him up. I took a picture and he was gonna, I said, let him go. Because my dad, although he never fished, I went hunting with him and he said, you don't kill what you can't eat. And we were in Mexico. And the captain said, you could take him back as a trophy. I was take that great, big, beautiful fish and hang him on my wall? I don't think so. Okay. Well, those are about all the adventures I could think of. But then I went to Oklahoma to visit my friend Brenda. And Brenda said, hey, you're in luck. We're going. She was in Waco, Texas. We're going to Oklahoma for the McKean clan reunion. We're going to eat catfish and cornbread and chili beans for 3 days. Catfish? Now, I knew in the South, the catfish they grow big catfish down there. Not those little guys I caught when I was 4 years old. No, they have big fish. And so we went and we set up camp and I looked around. I didn't see any fishing gear. I knew I could borrow or maybe go get some, but so finally I gave up and said, just how do you people catch catfish here down here? Oh, you're from California. You don't know nothing about noodling, do you? Noodling? What's noodling? Well, we're going noodling tomorrow and you can join us if you want. Oh, sure, I'm ready to go. I'm a fisherman. You got to borrow a long sleeve cotton shirt, the buttons down. You got to get some cotton pants and you got to get some sneakers that fit tight. And we'll go noodling tomorrow. Where's the fishing pole? We catch them with our hands. With our hands? We'll show you tomorrow. We get to the river. It's a muddy river. And it's a natural bank. And you get in and you put your hands down. Of course, you can't see them after they're 2 inches low. And you start feeling along the bank and shuffling and feeling and feeling. And you come to a hole. And you make a fist. You push in your hand. And you wiggle your thumb. And if you're lucky, a fish grabs a hold of that fist. And you pull it out. And you throw it up on the bank, somebody takes care of it, and you've caught yourself a fish. That's really great. Okay. Needle it along, okay. Hole. Hole. Well, I'm up to here in muddy water now. And this is the big hole. I stick my arm in and I wiggle my thumb. And I got a fish. But he doesn't stop at my wrist. The next thing I know, he's up to my shoulder. The next thing you know, I'm inside the fish. This wasn't in the cards. And you know how your life sort of flashes between your eyes when you think this is the end? Because I didn't know what to do. But Jake, those old tales ran through my mind and I knew what to do. Good for you, Jake. So I didn't go try to get out. I went through that fish till I got to the end of his tail. I grabbed his tail and I pulled until I got up to his gill. I put one foot on this gill and one foot on that gill, and I pulled with both legs and with my hand, and pop, I came right out. And that fish was inside out. I threw him up, and we didn't even have to clean him, just scrape him off. And throw him on the barbie. Granted, he was a little long for the barbecue pit, but we ate barbecued catfish for 3 days, cornfish and chili beans. And I'm a fisherman.
Wonderful.
I think I need to go fishing with my friend Joyce.
Yeah, do that.
Okay, number 6 is Mark Berry. His title, Shoes. Shoes, Mark Berry.
Thank you, Kevin. Hello, everybody. My buddy Roy and I were best friends for decades. And one of the things we most had in common was Roy and I both love to walk in the woods and the forest. I suppose today people call it hiking, but we just love to get lost in nature and just forget that we were civilized people, just be lost. And when we went hiking, Roy always took a rifle, and every once in a few years he might find something that was in season and he might take a trophy. And me, I always took my camera because those wild animals to me were so beautiful. I could never kill one. All I could shoot him with was my camera. And Roy, one thing unusual about Roy was his love for footwear. He loved a good pair of shoes, a good pair of boots more than anybody I knew. Some guys like to spend their money on women. Some guys like to spend their money on cars. Roy spent his money on hiking boots. He had them special, custom made to measure. He paid more for one pair of boots than I paid for my first motorcycle and my first car. No kidding. This guy was really into it. And he told me one time, he said, oh, I'm so excited. I'm so excited. I heard of the best boot maker in the world. This guy not only measures your foot around this way and around this way and around this way, this guy actually takes a mold of your foot and he casts your actual foot. And he makes this beautiful boot with the finest materials for your right foot. And then he makes another one that looks just like it for your left foot. And he said, I just can't wait until they're, I've ordered them and they're going to be here. And he was just so excited. So the week he was going to take delivery of these, look, I'm sounding like it's a new car, right? The week he's going to take delivery of these boots, I made up my mind to go over and see him that weekend. I couldn't wait to see how happy he was. And when I went over and I said, hey, Roy, what's going on? How you doing? I can't wait to see the boots. He says, Mark, I can't show them to you. I said, what? What's going on? He said, well, as soon as I got the boots, I had to put them on the next day and I had to go for a walk. And they were the most wonderful boots I'd ever had in my life. They felt so good. They fit so good. They came up a little bit like cowboy boots to protect my shins from the brush and brambles and maybe snakes and stuff. And they were just, and I was having so much fun walking in the beautiful forest in my beautiful boots that I realized after a while I wasn't going to make it back before dark. So I pitched my little tube tent, my little pup tent that I always carry with me, and decided to spend the night and come back the next day. And so I did at night, and I was cozy in my little get up that I carry. And of course I took the boots off and I put them down by the open end of the little tube tent, but not outside, because you don't want to get dew anywhere on fine footwear, but you have to put them near the opening so that the moisture from the day will evaporate out. So that's what he did, taking perfect care of these perfect boots. He said, when I woke up the next morning, I couldn't find my boots. And I looked outside of that tent and they were shredded. They were all over the area outside that, but strips over here and strips over there. They were shred. Something with teeth and claws had shredded my boots overnight. And as he was telling me the story, and I was just empathizing with him, I'm just so sorry. We were in his den, and there were some little animal head trophies on the wall, and I noticed one that was kind of in a prominent place, kind of right in the middle. And it was some kind of a cat, I guess. It was, I didn't know if it was a mountain lion or a puma or a cougar or what you call these things. So I inquired and I said, pardon me, Roy, is that the cat that chewed your new shoes? Yes, yes.
Well, if you aren't smiling now, you're never going to smile. But we're ready for number 7. And number 7 is Ed Lewis. What does manly mean? What does manly mean? Ed Lewis.
Well, after hearing Joyce's story, I'm going to switch around and do an old story that I haven't done for a long time. Back in 1980, I planned a driving trip from Los Angeles to Nova Scotia, then on a ferry to Newfoundland and another ferry to Labrador to go to the Gooseberry Festival. It was going to be a 3-month trip, but my first stop was to visit 2 of my best Army buddies in Missouri. And we were going to head on down the 11-Point River. And both of my buddies were expert canoeists. They were in competitions. Now, I had never canoed, but I had been on lots of boats and I knew a lot about boating, but this is going to be a great experience, especially from learning from these experts. So the plan was, the first day, Travis and I, we're starting in the Missouri Ozarks, and we're going to canoe for 1 day and meet Loy in the Arkansas Ozarks and camp out for the night. And we're going to go the easy part of the river, and then Loy and Travis, the good expert canoeists, would continue on down into a buddy's house where I was going to drive a truck around and meet him. So we got ready. Travis and I are getting our gear. Loy's got the canoe down, and I hear him yelling, "Help, help." And we come down and there's Loy swimming after the canoe as it's floating down the river. And I was kind of wondering, what kind of experts really are these people? But we got the canoe, brought it back up, and Travis and I got in, and Travis said, okay, here's the deal with canoeing. When we get into a rapid, and there's not too many tough rapids on this part, but it can be very loud in there. So I'm going to be screaming as loud as I can. I'm going to say power left or power right, whatever you got to do. You're going to be in front. I'll be guiding us from the back. Great. Okay. So we get in the boat, we go around the first bend, And Travis says, oh man, I thought this was on the lower part of the river. This is the worst rapids in the whole river. I went, okay, let's go back. Lloyd maybe hasn't driven down there yet. He said, no, we're going to do it. Just listen to me. So we get in there into the rapids and we're heading for this rock. And Travis is screaming, power left. So I did that. I took my oar and I dug into the water. He forgot to tell me that you have to sit up straight when you do this. Because when I leaned left, the canoe went, all our gear fell out. And we just missed the rock. My paddles floating down the river. And Travis was expert enough to get us through this rapid. We got our stuff, we got our gear, and then we continued our journey. And the Arkansas and Missouri Ozarks are just fascinating, just amazing countryside. And we spent the day canoeing. We'd stop and do some bass fishing. There were kids that would be on swings out over the water and we would join them. It was a great day. We met Loy about 6 o'clock, pulled our canoe up and he said, I've got an amazing place for us to camp. It's about a 1/4 mile hike up on this plateau. So we did that, got up on that plateau, and I had never seen a meteorite shower. And I don't know if any of you have ever seen them, but the sky was totally clear. There's no lights in this area at all. And it's like fireworks. I mean, stars are just shooting all over the sky. It was just an amazing experience for me. Well, the next day, Travis and Loy head out, and I'm supposed to drive around to a buddy's house and wait for them. So I get down there, and I was there about 11 o'clock in the morning, and the guy says, hey man, good to meet you. The whole holler is coming in. All 30 of us that live in this holler, we're going to be here today, and we're going to have a celebration, and we need lots of fish. Can you fish? Can I fish? I grew up fishing in the San Juan Islands. I'm probably, what kind of fish are there? Bass. Oh, bass. I'm probably the West Coast, maybe even the world's best bass fisherman. So he gave me his bass boat and I headed out. He said, I'll be back about 4 o'clock to do a little work. And then everyone's going to bring in the fixings. You know, they'll bring in yams and greens and all kinds of stuff. We got to supply the fish, 30 people plus you guys. No problem. So I started fishing. Man, I was just pulling fish in right and left because I'm the world's best bass fisherman. I had about 10 good sized bass and I ran out of bait. I had quite a bit of time left. So I said, you know what? I'm kind of a clever guy. I'm going to get me some bait. And I'm looking around and I see on this log, there's this frog sitting there. I'm going to catch me that frog. So I lean over and I reach down to grab that frog. And I realize the frog's not moving because it's in the mouth of a poisonous cottonmouth snake. Well, I know a lot about snakes, so I reach out, I grab that snake, I rip out that frog, I throw it in my bait bucket, and then I'm just going to flip the snake out in the river. But I hadn't anticipated that it was going to go like this, and I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to get bit by a poisonous snake in the middle of nowhere. So I'm a clever guy. For those of you who don't know me, I reach down in that canoe and I unscrew the lid and I bring up my 5th of Jack Daniels that I always carry with me. And I poured a shot right down the gullet of that snake. And the snake's eyes rolled back. It had this big grin and it went limp. And I flipped that snake out into the river. I cut up that frog. I caught 10 more bass that were getting bigger and bigger and bigger as the story goes along. But there was still, 20 bass. It wasn't enough for this whole holler. So I decide I'm looking for more bait. And wouldn't you know it, I feel this little nudging down my leg and I look down and there's that cottonmouth snake. And it's got a big bullfrog in its mouth. It's looking up at me and it's looking down at that 5th of Jack Daniels. And another thing that you don't know about me is that I'm kind of slow sometimes in figuring things out. I finally figured it out and I went, okay. So I grabbed the snake, I didn't even have to rip it out, just shot that bullfrog right into my bait bucket. And then one thing though, don't trust the snake. So this time I gave him 2 shots, a good shots of Jack Daniel's whiskey. And that snake had the biggest grin and was just relaxed. And I let it go into the river. We had a feast. I cut that up, 10 more. We had a great feast. And then I came back to California after the whole trip, 3 months in summer. And every year down in Rio Vista, they have a bass fishing contest. And I've entered it quite a few times and I never win it. If you win it, you get $500 and your name on a plaque down at the docks. So I've said, I got frogs now. I think that's really good bait. I'm going to probably catch a big one. So I entered it. And the last day I was there, I caught an 18-pound bass. And I was going to win because, they had announced who had the most. And then about an hour later that day, they announced a woman that got a 22-pound bass. I went, oh my God, I want to win this. And then the most amazing thing happened. I felt this little tapping alongside my legs. And I looked down and there's that cottonmouth snake and it's got a big bullfrog in its mouth. And then the cutest thing happened. This female cottonmouth snake with beautiful eyelashes and bass scales all over them. She came up and she had a frog, and then 2 little toddlers. They just spit those frogs right into the bait bucket. And of course, I just took my 5th of Jack Daniels and I poured it in this whole pan. They came up and they swam around. And before you judge those snakes as parents, maybe toddler snakes, kind of like in France, they start drinking early. Well, I took that bait and I cut it up and I caught a 27-pound bass and I won that contest in 1991. And if you don't believe me, you just head on down to Rio Vista, down to the docks, and you'll see Ed Lewis, 1991, bass fisherman. Of course, the world's greatest bass fisherman.
Well, we definitely heard a couple of fishy stories today. I am so grateful to all 7 of our presenters today. As some of you may not know, I was pulling my hair out. We only had 3 speakers on Monday, and I thought, am I going to have to cancel our liars contest? Whoops, there's another one. Oh, next day, 2 more. And lo and behold, yesterday we got number 7. And were we entertained? Let's give them all a warm applause. Now we're going to take a break, actually about 15-minute break, because we have the 2:30 break. And in between time, I would like Ed, and did you want to talk about the Sierra storytelling too?
No, I'm not prepared.
Oh, okay.
Well, I could say a little bit.
Mark will tell you a bit about the upcoming Sierra Storytelling Festival that's coming up in May. I've already got my tickets. And then Ed will tell you about East Bay
Area.
Bay Areas, and I already got my ticket. I said I are going. So they will tell you a little bit about those upcoming storytelling festivals. And then please eat the food. Vicki doesn't want to take any food home. Let's give her a warm thank you for preparing. She always fixes a wonderful and outstanding food tray for us. Gloria, you have something?
When you're done, I have a brief announcement.
A brief announcement? Well, come on up, and is it about storytelling too?
No, I'm just inviting everyone to take some lemons home for my treat.
Oh. If you're here in person, you heard it. Lemons free. So Ed, you want to come up and Mark?
Sure.
I'll put these flyers out. This is for the 31st Bay Area Storytelling Festival. It's one of the 2 premier festivals in California. Mark's going to tell you about another one. and it is May 4th. And I know
Third and fourth.
third and fourth. Third is just an evening piece, and then Saturday is an all-day piece. And this is a really amazing festival. Like I say, it's been going on for 31 years, and they have 5 major storytellers that are international storytellers, just some of the best you'll ever hear. They've got a Native American man that is going to do his last native dance. He's in costume, and he's done this all over the world, along with being a great storyteller. So that's going to happen. One of my favorite storytellers, Diane Ferlot, will be there, and she always starts her stories out with a staff, and she starts a rhythm, and she sings this little song, and she has a guitar player that plays along with her while she's telling stories. Just fantastic. And then we have a local teller, Brandon Spars, who's started now. He's doing a national festival. And then 2 tellers, I don't know, a Japanese woman and a woman from Hawaii will be sharing stories. And then there's workshops. There's all kinds of events. You can go online, check it out. You can also Zoom in. You can register online, see it live or see it later. And then the other one is the National Storytelling Conference. That's in Seattle on July 7th through the 11th. So it's the Seattle area. If you get a chance, check it out. It's a National Storytelling Network, and it's a huge 3-day conference with workshops, lots of speakers. And if you want to get up to Seattle, they have that. I think they probably have some online things too. All right.
So you're gonna pass those out?
I'll put these over here, or I'll just come around to anyone who wants one. Mark, you want to say something?
Yes. Thanks, Ed.
Sure.
First of all, I want to give a big shout out to Karen. Karen, thank you so much for organizing and being our MC. And to Andy, thank you for all the work you do before, during, and after, and behind the scenes to be our tech magic wizard. And coming up on June 28th and June 29th is the Sierra Storytelling Festival. The largest, as far as I know, the largest storytelling festival in the world is in Jamestown, Tennessee. The second largest, as far as I know, is it's up in a little town called North San Juan, which is up above Grass Valley in Nevada City, right up Highway 80 and Highway 49. And it's Friday night, June 28th, and all day Saturday, June 29th. And just like the one Ed mentioned in the Bay Area, there's going to be some of the world's very best tellers. And if you're familiar with our local tellers, the local teller, they always have international tellers and one local teller. The one local teller this year is going to be our friend Tom Wade. And I'm so glad they chose him.
Yeah.
So it's you could just check it out online, Sierra Storytelling Festival last weekend in June. And it's beautiful surroundings. They have a new stage since you've been there, if you weren't there last year. Awesome. So it's a great time. Thank you.
Thanks, and I just want to shout out, oh, sorry, Rowan, you want to talk? Come on up.
Thanks.
Working?
Looks like it. Hi, everyone. So I just published Stories for Climate Change. So one of the things that I do is I tell stories, traditional tales, not personal stories so much, but traditional tales to help people to have dialogues about climate change.
Right.
So there's a whole bunch of stories in here and the background for it, for you to have your own personal dialogues with people about this very important thing that everyone is facing in the world. And I'm giving a series of free lessons on Lesson Fest, which is a virtual platform. And they will be in July. So one of them is Once Upon a Time Storytelling to Teach English. So if you are a teacher or know teachers, then there's a free program there. And then Stories for Climate Change, where I'll talk to people about the content that I have in this book. And then Tai Chi Fusion, because I'm also a certified Tai Chi teacher, so I'm going to be doing online Tai Chi, so you can do this all virtual.
Ah, yeah.
You can get on Amazon, so Stories for Climate Change by Bo and Lee.
You have any details there? What?
I just wanted to do a quick shout out to the Sacramento Poetry Center for letting us have this facility free at no charge every single month. So appreciate that. Go help yourself to some food, guys, and chit chat amongst yourself while they tally the votes.
All right. Excellent.
I can't.
I love that. I don't recall that part. I remember something else.
That was Brandon. I never.
I know you still think about it. Place, but yeah, that was really cool. I love that. I really love it. You go to the festival? See how young people are. I'm always young. I'll be up for the natural storytelling festival in Seattle. Yeah, yeah. Oh, cool. Oh, I love it. I mean, that Sierra. Yeah, yeah, I'm in Seattle then. But,
Oh.
the whole month of July. And I'll be at the National Storytelling Festival. Ah. Yeah, well, that's gonna be great. I mean, oh yeah, and I just saw Bill he was maybe 2 months ago, 3 months ago, he did a thing through SAC at a live, no, no, it's an event in Santa Rosa area, a little town, Nevada. At a winery, that's it, it was a winery, and that was great, you know, it was him and Corey Rosen, and I think somebody else. They were fantastic as usual.
Well, they had a good audience.
Yeah, they had a good audience, and yeah, they filled it up, and then he was hired to do, you know, Brandon Leak, he won America's Got Talent as a spoken word artist in 2019 or 2015.
Oh, it was wonderful.
Yeah, so, he was, you know, when he won it, he had a show in Vegas. And I went and saw him there. It was really cool. He's an amazing performer. But America's Got Talent, what they do is if you win, you headline a show they put on, and then they have, you know, 8 or so other acts that were either won or they, you know, they're big shots, you know. It's such a great show. It was fantastic. And I got to know him because he taught at Delta College, where I teach part-time, and down in Stockton. And so he and Bill Leff were at this library fundraiser in Lodi that I guess Brandon does a lot for helping out. And he's teaching in a preschool now. And he took he won $1 million on America's Got Talent. He's a big, tall black guy. He bought this abandoned shopping community area and in Stockton where he used to live. And he says, I'm kind of getting out of the spoken word thing for now because I'm focusing on redeveloping it and really making it for the community. Wow. But the two of them together, you know, and this event, it was great food. And it was packed. At least, I don't know, 150 people there. The fundraiser, it was good getting there and all of that. That's very good.
I'm glad to know that now.
I love Bill.
Yeah, me too. And it's been a long time. I saw him once or twice at Sierra's.
Oh, really?
I can't wait to see him again.
Yeah. Yeah, the first time I saw him was at that natural. Yeah. So it was the Natural Festival in Jonesboro, Tennessee. Have you ever been to that? Oh gosh, that is the highlight of all festivals.
I bet, yeah. I would go to the second. I just did sort of the phone here in Michigan.
Oh.
So there's 7 stages going simultaneously. Like,
Can't. Oh, you're serious?
if I pick a stage, that means I'm missing the other 6.
Oh. So that really is something?
I did a little bit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't know what to do with this. Like they have a music festival, up in Grass Valley at the fairgrounds. We have this music festival in the summer. I listen to it on favorite month because they only play one group at a time.
Well, I used to go to, I used to go to the Strawberry Music Festival up in Yosemite. And didn't they combine with that?
Maybe
I know they lost their site up there. It was up by Petchetchi Dam. It was right in that whole area, but they lost it, I don't know, 6 years ago or something.
Oh, really? Are you? Oh, wow. Even better. Yeah, I know. Yeah.
How are you?
Wow.
Someone sent me a picture, you know, their parents, many years ago. They sent me that little thing that said, you know, snake Jack Daniel, sure the thing about the snake is Jack Daniel. That's crazy. Yeah. So when two person.
And that was in. Yeah. Is your name?
So for sure, the four of us are gonna go.
Did all of
Okay,
that
so
part of
you're
it.
going.
Story.
Probably. I don't think I know. Yeah.
Okay, you're not going. I'm going. I'm just going. Just saying.
Not yet.
I am 68 years old.
Yes. You're working on a story. You can just-
I am so proud of that. I never thought of
All right,
it.
tell them.
What do you do?
You're working on a story.
Okay,
Hi, Gail. How are you?
Don't know yet.
Good to hear.
Okay, there you go. And you sent me a one. He really loves it. I love this song. You can try to make it dance with it. Iron and copy on. I know, so that's what's happening.
And I know, you don't have the story, you don't have to. So tell her about it. This Joyce is doing this next one. I will make her-
I love Mother Nature.
I remember saying about that,
I'll be able
Tell the story you told them.
24th of July.
I
Were you able to hear? We had the microphone. So were you able to hear today? I know, now. Good.
No, I
hope that rhymes with.
And
I have my hearing aid. Oh, that definitely helps. All right.
You know what the theme is?
I'm gonna Joyce. Where'd Joyce go? Joyce, you're the host next month. You're the host next month, aren't you? Are we going with the ethnics or is there another?
And we're going with,
I'm gonna call you up. I just don't know if you have. So I'll call you up when I do the, okay.
You ready?
Yep.
Okay, let me spotlight you. People coming on still. You're already started.
We're ready? All right. Well, I think everybody has stayed because they're ready to hear the winners. First of all, we had two storytellers that just got so caught up with their stories. They went a little overtime. And put in everything out. They were 8 to 10 minutes. 10 minutes is the cutoff. And so Boehm and Joyce both went over. So they were taken out. So I wanted to let you know. And so I'll start with third place. That's more fun. Build it up, build it up. Our third place winner. Mother Nature. We all know about Mother Nature now. I love that story. Second place. Wanted to know what those shoes were. Mark Bates! And our third place winner, first place winner. Where's our bottle to celebrate? Let's welcome Ed. And now I'm going to call up our president and Joyce, who is our host for next month. And she will give you a brief announcement of what she has planned. And I hope to see all your smiling faces next month. Thank you for being here and supporting the Sacramento Storytelling Guild. Joyce.
thank you. It is, off the top of my head, it's either a season for everything or everything for a season. I don't remember which. But any story is welcome. And we're in third Saturday in May, 2 to 3:45. Get in touch with me. Let me know. I'll be sending out to the guild and to the invite storytellers a flyer. All the information will be on it. And I already have one from Davis, a new teller. And I, just to prove it, I gave her a preview of our flyer. The flyer's not out yet. It's just in draft form. And let's see. And for guild members, I sent out a questionnaire about where you want us to go as a guild. Please get back to us. It doesn't have to be in that order. So we know what you want. We can't plan forward if we don't know what all the members want. And that's
your pants.
what?
I want your pants.
Oh. What? You want to hear a little story about this?